Don't think
just because
you live in the king's house, you're the one Jew who will get out of this alive if you persist in staying silent at a time like this. Help and deliverance will arrive for the Jews from someplace else. But you and your family will be wiped out. Who knows? Maybe you were made for just such a time as this.
Our scripture today is the book of Esther. It is the story of a young girl who uses her very unfortunate circumstances to save her people from death. It is the only book in the Bible that does not directly mention God, meaning there is no passage in Esther that says, "and God said," or "and God did," or "and the prophet of the Lord said." It is the only book without mention of God doing anything really to move the story along. And yet it is widely regarded as one of the most important stories in the Bible, at least by me, because it shows that in order to see God in some things, you have to look for him or her. You have to look at the actions of people around you, and that may not always be the actions of people who are followers of Christ. It could be the woman at the grocery store or the woman sharing Me Too on Facebook. It could be anyone. It could be one of the children in our ministry sharing a very particular choice of colors in the drawing that they did their best to stay inside the lines. It could be your dog busting down the gate to try to remind you to be patient. My dog just did that. You can hear her whining in the back probably. Nonetheless, it is an invitation for parents and children to look for the signs of God everywhere. One of my favorite things during Zoom Sunday School is the fact that we don't really do a lesson. We talk about our highs and lows of the week, and then we talk about our God sightings. And sometimes they make sense. We have two girls who like to point out the changing of the seasons every week, or their pet for being their God sighting, because God made creatures and God made fall and God made everything beautiful. But we have another participant who likes to say, well, I can see God in my iPad, or I can see God in ice cream or Starbucks. And I always ask her, well, how can you see God that way? And she'll say, well, I see God in my iPad. God made things very diverse, and he made people diverse, and he makes iPads diverse because there's all kinds of games you could download. And I'm like, wow, that's deeper than I thought it would be. Think of the great things that our kids can do in the future. We have no idea what they're going to be. I've never liked the term or the phrase, children are the next generation of the church. Not because I don't think it's true. They are the next generation. But I truly believe that they have a place in our church right now. Just as Esther found, she was a child, just as she found that she could use her circumstances to do the work of God, I think our kids are doing the work of God right now, even in virtual school, even at home. It reminds me of a book that I am going to add to our church library downstairs. but I'm not going to read all of it to you, but it says, "When God Made You," by Matthew Paul Turner. And at the very end of the book, it talks about how you being you is God's dream come true. I'll read a little bit of the end. Let me find it. See the beautiful pictures? That's you, God's you. You will be hopeful and kind, a giver who lives with all heart and soul and mind. A dreamer who will dream in big and small themes. One who will keep dreaming in journeys upstream. A mover, a shaker, and a lover of nature. A builder of bridges, you, the peacemaker. A you who views others as sisters and brothers and lives by 3 words: love one another. A confident you, strong and brave too. You being you is God's dream come true. 'Cause when God made you, all of heaven was beaming. Over you, God was smiling and already dreaming. So my message to parents and kids alike is to remember that whatever circumstances we find ourselves in right now, the quarantine, virtual school, Walmart pickup, socially distant run of life right now, whatever's happening, you working to be the best you loving other people, is you being God's dream come true. That is you doing God's will. And you can find that in other things too. So my challenge this week is to look for those God sightings, just as I challenge our kids to do. They can be in the autumnal foliage, or your iPad, or your coffee order on Monday morning. Look for those signs and stay safe.